All right, let's talk about something we've probably all been through. That undeniable magnetic pull toward the kitchen when we're feeling stressed out. Today, we're going to dive into the fascinating, and honestly, kind of weird science of why our brains seem to be totally hardwired for comfort food.
You know the feeling, right? It's been a long day, you've got a deadline breathing down your neck, and suddenly, that bag of chips isn't just a snack. It feels like a survival tool. So what's actually going on inside your body and your brain at that exact moment? Well, we're about to find out. So the first thing we've got to get our heads around is this really weird paradox. It's confusing because sometimes stress completely kills your appetite, right? But other times it makes you want to eat everything in sight. How can it possibly do both? What's the deal?
Well, it turns out your body has a two-act play for dealing with stress. In the face of a sudden, immediate threat, like slamming on the brakes to avoid an accident, your body flips the fight or flight switch. The last thing it's thinking about is lunch. But then, once that danger is gone, Act 2 begins, and that's all about refueling.
The star of Act 1 is a hormone called CRH. Think of it as your body's internal panic button. It basically screams, "Emergency! Shut down all non-essential systems now!" And you know what's considered non-essential when you're running for your life? Digestion. So, appetite off.
Okay, but after that initial panic subsides, a new character takes the stage, cortisol. You've definitely heard of this one, the famous stress hormone. And if that stress sticks around, cortisol's job is the complete opposite of CRH. It's the cleanup crew, saying, all right, crisis averted, we burned a ton of energy, time to restock the pantry. And it's very specific about what it wants you to restock with.
And that leads us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? If we just need to refuel, why the donut? Why the pizza? Why not a big, nutrient-rich salad? I mean, they're all food. Well, the answer to that question is buried deep inside your brain's reward system.
Let's get into it. This is all about what happens to your brain on comfort food. We're talking about the powerful chemistry of reward and why those high-fat, high-sugar foods feel so incredibly good when you're stressed.
Now, get ready for this, because it's pretty mind-blowing. The part of your brain that lights up when you eat a piece of cake? It's the exact same circuit that gets activated by addictive drugs. And no, that's not an exaggeration. That's just straight-up neuroscience.
Here's how that powerful loop gets built. It's a simple four-step process. First, you eat the comfort food. In response, your brain releases a flood of a feel-good chemical called dopamine. That creates a huge signal of pleasure and relief. And here's the kicker. Your brain immediately learns from this, reinforcing the behavior, basically saying, hey, that worked. Let's remember to do that again next.
And Dr. Candace said he really hits the nail on the head here. The comfort is real. It's a genuine chemical event in your brain. But, and this is the important part, it's also incredibly short-lived. And that's the trap, right? It fades, and then you want to do it again to get that feeling back.
So, this whole system seems to work okay for one-off stressful event. But what happens when the stress isn't a one-off? What happens when it's your job, or your bills, or just modern life? Well, that's when this finely tuned system starts to break down. To see how it breaks, we need to look at a little region in the brain called the lateral habulena. You can think of it as the brake pedal for your brain's reward system. Its job is to say, okay, that's enough pleasure, we can stop now. But here's what's wild. Research has shown that under chronic stress, this entire region just goes quiet. The brakes stop working. So what happens in a car when the brakes fail? You just keep going. It's the same thing here. The go signal from dopamine is still on full blast, but the stop signal from the lateral habenula is gone. And that is the crucial shift. You're no longer eating for hunger. You're now eating purely for pleasure, to soothe that feeling of stress.
And as if that's not enough, our own genetics can make things even trickier. It turns out some of us are just walking around with 30 to 40% fewer docking stations or receptors for that dopamine to land on. And what that means is your brain might need more stimulation, more comfort food, just to get that same level of pleasure, which can make you much more vulnerable to this whole cycle.
And if you want to see just how dramatic this effect is in the real world, check this out. In a landmark study, scientists fed two groups of mice the exact same high-calorie diet. The only difference? One group was stressed and the other wasn't. The results were staggering. The stressed-out mice gained twice as much weight. Let that sink in. Same food, double the weight gain. This proves it's not just about the calories, it's about what stress is doing to your brain.
So now you can probably see how all these pieces, the hormones, the dopamine, the broken brake pedal, they all lock together to form this incredibly powerful, self-perpetuating loop. So let's actually walk through this vicious cycle and see why it's so ridiculously hard to break.
Now, here's the absolute twist in the story, the real kicker. Eating that comfort food does more than just make you feel pleasure. It literally, biochemically, tells your body's stress system to calm down. It acts like a temporary off switch for your stress response. And that's what makes it such an effective and frankly dangerous coping mechanism. Because on some level, it actually works.
So let's run through the whole cycle one last time. You feel stressed. Your brain, swimming in cortisol, craves that dopamine reward. You eat the comfort food. That food gives you the pleasure hit, and it quiets down the stress hormones. And your brain, being incredibly smart, forges a powerful link. Hey, that fixed the problem. And boom, the behavior is locked in, ready to go for the next time stress hits.
But why are some of us more prone to this cycle than others? Well, to answer that, we have to go way, way back. Like before we can even form memories. It turns out that a lot of this programming is set incredibly early in our lives.
Yeah, this whole process starts way earlier than you'd think. It can begin in the womb, where a mother's stress levels can actually start to shape the baby's developing stress system. Then, after we're born, our earliest experiences can cause what are called epigenetic changes, which literally alter how our genes are expressed. All of this lays down a blueprint that can influence how sensitive we are to stress and cravings for our entire lives. Which really leaves us with one big, final question to chew on. Our bodies are equipped with this ancient survival kit, right? A system that evolved to help us escape a predator in the wild and then refuel. But what happens when the predator is a 24/7 news cycle, an inbox that never sleeps, and constant social pressure? In our modern world of chronic, psychological stress, is it possible that our own ancient biology is now working against us? It's a pretty powerful thought. Thanks for digging into this with me.